In the next few minutes, I will share with you guys how to work with NestJS Interceptor with real-world example. I have set up a project that returns a delayed string. Ideally, we will create a cache method to fasten things up. If we try to hit the endpoint, we will get a delayed result. Cache is pretty useful in most cases to help reduce hitting the database for the same result. Before anything else, let us clear our controller first. If you're familiar with caching, we will first check in our storage if we have anything with certain key that we have defined. Now in this case, the key will be grid_key. After we have checked in our storage that we have in fact the grid_key record, we will just return them without hitting our database. Otherwise, if it is not there in the storage, we first get the value from the database and then assign it to the cache. So the next time this endpoint is called again, we will get the cache value instead. Be sure that the key that are being set and get are actually the same, otherwise you might confuse yourself while you're receiving something different. When we try to save and hit the endpoint again, we will be greeted with an internal server error. This is because local storage is actually not part of node.js environment, unlike our web environment itself. One way for us to solve this is by using cache manager package. Now that it has been installed, let us implement the caching method. We will import the function from the cache manager, and then after that, we will assign the function to the class itself as an instance. After that, it is just a matter of replacing. We will replace the local storage implementation with the one from cache manager. At this point, I am just copy pasting the whole thing, and be sure that after you have copy pasted the whole thing, the await is being used in front of the manager.get. When we try to hit the endpoint for the first time, we will receive a delayed result since we are using some set timeout. But on the second time, it is almost instantly. By using this caching method, you can reduce the call time to the database. This is quite a handy technique, but what if I want to implement the same technique to another endpoint called question that returns who is world? So it's just a basic implementation. I will need something more dynamic to handle all of this interception. To solve this, we will generate an interceptor called cache manager interceptor and implement the caching there. I will first delete any unnecessary spec file so that you might not get confused. Now that we have the interceptor ready, I will just quickly copy and paste the whole thing from the controller into this interceptor. Be sure that you import the cache manager package and also declare the variable into the instance. To solve this type error, I will just wrap this whole observable into a promise. I'll remove this manager.get method since our next.handle method will do it for us. After that, I will pipe after the next.handle observable and tap into the response. This allows us to make changes while accessing the response at the same time. Since we're not using the app service anymore and would like our response to be dynamic, we just return response value directly. I'll just remove this line and replace it with simple response. Notice that the tab function is not imported yet. We can import this guy from rxjs/operators. And then after that, I will just remove any unnecessary comments since we already know what the line of code actually does. And I'll quickly remove this thing and it should be good. Next, inside our controller, we can already begin to remove any unnecessary code. I will just return from the service and I will simply type in return app service.getHello. And then for the question endpoint, I will just return a simple string of who is world. Now to begin implementing our interceptor, we will use the decorator of use interceptors and apply our interceptor inside it. Do the same thing as well for our question endpoint, and we should be able to access the same interceptor throughout the endpoints. Make sure that our application is running and try to hit the endpoint. For our hello world, we will receive a delayed hello world, and if we try to hit the endpoint again, we can see quickly the endpoint. Now, if I want to check for the question endpoint, I will paste it here and /question. Try to send the endpoint again. I will receive the who is world string. So not much changes, but if I try to hit the endpoint of hello world, I will receive something weird. Suppose I should receive hello world, but I am receiving who is world. These sort of things happen because they are sharing the same key for a different cache. In the end, they are forced to share the same value. For us to solve this problem, I need to make sure each endpoints hold their own unique key value. Let us create a decorator called cache key. If you're from my previous video, which I highly recommend for you to watch, I will use this decorator to set metadata to assign the said unique key. You can consider this like a paperclip. The way it works is by taking advantage of set metadata helper. For the parameter, I'll just accept single value, which we will see afterward when we apply this decorator. Everything is looking fine for this decorator, so let us first head back to our controller. We would like to apply this decorator at this point. Now remember, don't get intimidated. All this decorator does is just like a paperclip. I am attaching this grid_key value together with the controller. That's all it does. And again, I will repeat the same step for my question endpoint. I will copy the cache key decorator and assign a different value for it so that we can distinguish between them. So at this one, I will just use question_key. Since we are using so-called paperclip technique by using decorator, we can remove the hard-coded value of grid_key inside our interceptor. But first, we need to include the reflector inside our controller. This reflector is like our interviewer when you interview for a job. He will remove the attachment from your resume. So in this case will be our controller method just now. Now that the attachment has been retrieved, we can access them by using reflector.get method. I will just assign this retrieve key to a constant called key so that we can reuse them inside this interceptor. To know what the reflector key that we will use, head over to the decorator we created just now. In this case, we set it as cache key, so now we can reuse it back to retrieve the value. The benefit of interceptor is we can get the value of next layer. In our example, it is controller even before hitting it. That's one of the advantage of execution context. Now after all of our hard work, I can now remove this hard-coded grid_key and the key will now be dynamic based on what endpoint that I am hitting. If hello world endpoint is being hit, it will be grid_key. If it is question endpoint, and it will be question_key. Alright, it is the moment of truth. Previously, both hello world and question endpoint are sharing the same cache. By using this decorator that we have just created, we can now separate them all together. So let's try to hit the hello world. We will receive a delay which is expected, and then the next time will be quite fast. And then after that, hitting the question endpoint, it will be quite a different result. By this point, we have learned about NestJS Interceptor and how to implement caching. This piece of code are almost the identical code provided by NestJS caching technique. I hope you guys learned something new in this video. Be sure to subscribe and hit the like button if you found it to be helpful. It is totally free, and you can also find me on Twitter where I joined the 100 Days of Code Challenge. I'll see you guys on the next video.